Well, welcome to this webinar on philanthropic trends. We're going to be talking about how and why advisors, professional advisors to high net worth clients, should be and must be engaging their clients on this important topic. We've got a terrific panel of experts, all coming at this area from different fields. I'm going to bring them on to introduce themselves in a second. But as always with these webinars, we love to hear from the audience. I've got my eyes tuned into the Q&A, so you can drop in a question to the Q&A or the chat throughout the session, and I'll bring it direct live to our expert panel as we move through. So just to get us underway, Joe Crome, perhaps you could kick us off with some introductions and what you do in this field.
Hi David, thank you very much, and thanks everyone for joining today. I'm Joe Crome. I work for CAF, or Charities Aid Foundation. Our vision is to accelerate progress in society towards a fair and sustainable future for all. And what that means practically is that we work with individuals, corporates, and foundations to partner with them to maximize their giving worldwide. I personally work with high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals through providing donor advised funds, and I particularly work with US, UK connected individuals, and we support their giving with their families, giving them non-cash assets, and making sure that they're giving both in a tax effective way, but also in a way that meets their values and the impact strategy that they have for them and their families.
Fantastic. And you're joining us today live from Washington, D.C. So we're very pleased to have you on from across the pond. So thanks for joining us,
Thanks,
Joe.
David.
Kate Quinton.
Hi, David. Thanks so much for having me. My name's Kate Quentin. I'm a partner and wealth manager at Tribe Impact Capital. Tribe was the UK's first impact-focused wealth management firm, which means that essentially we invest our clients' wealth both for financial return, but also in line with the impact that they want to see in the world. And I have clients right across from individuals and families through to even charities as well. So lots of ways of thinking about what we're going to discuss today.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Rachel Derrick.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me. I'm head of partnerships at the Global Returns Project, GRP, which is a UK charity that works with advisors to offer clients really high quality green philanthropy. We have an advisory board of world-class scientists with whom we assess and select the highest impact climate and nature charities for our portfolio of charities. Donations come to us and are distributed 100% to some or all of the charities. We reassess our portfolio every 6 months and provide regular impact reports so donors have peace of mind that they are getting the best sort of bang for their buck, philanthropically speaking, and advisors can have peace of mind that they're outsourcing the charity research and selection and ongoing monitoring to experts.
Okay, fantastic. Well, great to have you with us. And Becky Holmes.
Hi everyone. Yeah, thanks for having me and for joining everyone. I'm what the wealth advisory sector like to call a next gen, which seems to be quite a big buzzword this year. I'm trustee of the Helvellyn Foundation along with my dad and my sister, and that's a private family foundation that's set up with my dad's wealth, which was created through a business founded by him in 1990. I do this alongside a full-time job, which is Chief of Staff at Langland Conservation, which is works on the illegal wildlife trade, countering the illegal wildlife trade. I'm also on the advisory group for the Environmental Funders Network. I'm a member of Patriotic Millionaires, and I'm very passionate about encouraging other people like me to do good with their money. And we can't really do this without the wealth advisors, hence speaking on panels like this.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Becky. And last but not least, Rachel Travers.
Thanks so much, David, for hosting this, and hello, everybody. I'm Rachel. I'm the Chief Exec here at Rainforest Trust UK. Rainforest Trust is a global leader in conservation, and we support the creation and expansion of protected and conserved areas, which play a central role in combating biodiversity loss and fighting climate change. And Rachel Derrick mentioned the Global Returns Project portfolio. We're one of their chosen charity partners, and I just have to say that, Rachel, sorry. Since 1988, Rainforest Trust has worked with partners across the world. We've worked in 72 countries now, I believe, and we've protected over 54 million acres of tropical habitat. And obviously my role to Rainforest Trust in the UK here is to build our charity here, and we're trying to provide as many opportunities as possible, and we work with high net worth clients who want to donate to meaningful global conservation projects.
Fantastic. So just looking at the landscape, the backdrop, I mean, Rachel, Derek, perhaps I could come to you. I know you've got a lot of research that you've done into this space, looking at what high net worth families want, why they want to engage in philanthropy, and what that means. Perhaps you'd give us a few headlines from your latest research.
Yeah, so I suppose most of the research I've done has really been concerning the relationship between wealth advisory professionals and high net worth individuals and philanthropy. So there's some really interesting information. We know, for example, that 3/5 of advisors are concerned about losing business due to the great wealth transfer, but 4/5 of them don't have any specific marketing strategy for younger investors. So there's sort of a really a big market opportunity for wealth advisors that are interested and willing to talk about philanthropy with their clients, as well as the younger generation, the much vaunted next gen. There's also a growing cohort of female investors and potential clients. And there's, I mean, I can talk all day about sort of, female investors, but, the idea is that 60% of UK wealth will be in female hands this year. And 76% of women say they'll change their advisor when they're widowed. So, already the opportunity.
So there's an untapped opportunity there, isn't there? There's a market opportunity. I mean, Kate Quinton, you're nodding along. I think you're in agreement here with Rachel's numbers and data on the market.
Yes, very much so. And I mean, the data reflects our own experience at Tribe, really. So, we're an impact wealth management firm. So the way that we do that is we try to create portfolios that are aligned with our clients' values, and then we report on the environmental and social impact of those investments. And we set out to do that because we thought it was the right thing to do. The happy coincidence is that we've also become the kind of firm that appeals, I think, most to female clients and younger clients. And I think that is a little bit to do with the fact that we talk about our clients' values. We're going a bit, we're sort of trying to change how things have always been done in wealth management. And it's the way, and so I see that there is a desire from female clients and younger people to do things a little bit differently. So I would definitely say that's our lived experience.
I should probably also add that I am a client of Tribe, so I'm one of those young females as well.
And Becky, I mean, yeah, talk to us a bit about that. I mean, as a sector, the wealth management sector can be, very set in its ways. Clients like yourself coming through see the world differently, want different things. I mean, how do you see the professional services, offering to people like yourself coming through with a different mindset?
It's a difficult one. I don't really have any financial advisors. So when I first started kind of having more wealth to manage, I didn't really go through my mum. So my parents are divorced. I didn't go through either of their advisors. I actually ended up tapping into contacts who were in similar positions to me, which were quite hard to find initially. And now kind of once you're in there, then you get introduced to more and more people. And I remember when I initially started to look for impact investing, Tribe's name came up quite a few times and is one of the few, if not only at the time, organizations that is exclusively kind of impact led. So it's not kind of a sub thing that they do, it's the whole thing that they do. And I mean, it helps that Kate is female as well. And it feels like a nice environment. Sometimes I've sat with advisors which are all men, and it's a very different environment. So I think that does help. But I'm 5 years into this space now, and I think that it's few and far between to find those more kind of progressive, like-minded wealth advisors. And you can see very quickly when you're in a room with someone, whether they're genuinely progressive or whether they're just wanting your money and kind of saying what they think you want to hear.
Really interesting. We'll come back to that. But Joe, I just wanted to bring you on the research on the macro picture. I know CAF do a lot of research around specifically helping advisors unlock opportunities. What's your take on what advisors should be doing more proactively to put this on the table?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting just hearing Becky's experience just then, actually, because there are lots of studies that show that between 80 and 90% of inheritors will just decide to choose different advisors when an estate or money passes down to them. And there's the most recent one I've seen is a McKinsey study showing that of inheritors will decide they want to work with other advisors, maybe advisors that meet their own values and needs more than they feel their parents did. And it's interesting because that's such an anecdotal thing that I hear, but just hearing Becky say it just then is sort of one confirmation of those studies that we've seen. But I mean, maybe just for a minute, just zooming back out in terms of the macro. I mean, we do a lot of research at CAF, particularly in the high net worth and advisor space. And we just 2 weeks ago launched our new high net worth giving report, which is the first time we've done a report just for the high net worth segment. And we found that the UK's wealthiest 1% donated just under £8 billion to charities in 2023. That's just in the UK. That was equivalent to about 0.4% of their combined 2 trillion investable assets. If they went up to 1%, we'd be looking at an extra £12 billion a year for charity. So the size of the prize is large in terms of how much is being given, but actually we see how much more can be given when advisors and donors can both better understand, how to give effectively and some of the things that are just lesser known. We also a lot of our work is with advisors on helping them. If you think about high net worth individual, they have a team of advisors often around them, around their sort of metaphorical table, and we often end up being the philanthropy advisor around the table. And so a lot of our referrals from clients come from the tax, legal, wealth management professions. And so just over a year ago, we ran some research with both high net worth individuals and with advisors. So 500 high net worth individuals to over 200 advisors about how much giving means to them, how important they think it is to their business, do they want help? And again, to Becky's point, we found that the younger segment, so in this case, the 18 to 34 segment, was by far the most likely to want help with their philanthropic endeavors. So 57% of that group said they wanted advisors to help them with that work. But yet we also found when talking to the advisors that 63% of private wealth advisors rarely or never discuss philanthropy with their clients, and 72% don't ever bring it up in their first kind of fact-finding client onboarding kind of survey or questionnaire. So from what we see, there is a gap between what clients actually want and what the advisor industry is offering. And so part of our role is to try and help educate and support and run sessions and that kind of thing.
Fantastic.
Can I just follow on
Please.
from that? I think one really important thing is that we hear a lot is that wealth advisors wait for the clients to bring it up. And I think that you don't know what you don't know. So if you've just inherited £100 million, you're going to sit with your financial advisors and they'll probably tell you about tax advice because you don't know how to be tax efficient, or you don't know the different ways you can invest. You also don't know how to do philanthropy. So why is it that they wait for you to bring up philanthropy, but they're the ones to bring up all these other streams that involve managing wealth? Like, it just doesn't make sense. I don't understand why it's so separate when it is just another way of managing money. And that's my 2 cents on the point that you said.
I had this conversation on a panel with some investment managers a few months ago, and I think there is a fear of, because philanthropy is so personal, there is a fear of overstepping. But actually, when I talk to investment managers and wealth advisors, I've never heard an advisor having any sort of bite back from a client when they've asked them about, oh, do you give to charity? Are you leaving money in your will? I've never heard that become a negative conversation. It's always received well, I think. So I agree with you, Becky.
Thank you. Kate, do you have a perspective on that issue?
Yeah, thanks, David. It's so interesting to hear this being spoken about, because one of the things that actually kind of really led me to Tribe in the first place is I have been in wealth management roles in bigger institutions. And the thing I always observed is that I would be sitting there talking to somebody about their investments, and they'd be sort of falling asleep at the desk, really kind of pretty uninterested in what I had to say. And then there'd be this philanthropy team who would be sort of sat in the corner of the floor, slightly forgotten about. And you get them in a meeting with clients, and clients would completely change. You had much, much better conversations. They were passionate about what was being discussed. And that to me was always such a stark contrast. And I suppose Tribe, really, what we've tried to do is bring that passion into the investments. But I suppose the point is also that what I would say to everybody on the call and everybody listening is, never be afraid to ask personal questions. That's our job as an advisor, and actually do ask questions that are going to interest and excite your clients, because actually I think you become a better advisor, not just from a philanthropy perspective, but right across the spectrum. So really, really advise people to try that out.
And do you think, Kate, also that helps advisors grow their business? Because if they key into the passions, they really serve those clients genuinely, then that will lead to more introductions and their soft and broader network. I mean, how have you seen the development of the tribe business through delivering what people want in that space?
I think it definitely helps. So we have a process called the Impact DNA, which is a kind of behavioral finance tool, and it mixes sustainability thinking. And it's essentially a process that we take clients through when we first are getting to know them to help to define what impact means to them and how they want it to be reflected in their portfolios. I suppose the critical thing about it is that we don't talk about money really at all during that process. And I've found that that creates a much, much richer relationship, kind of both initially and then over time, because you actually get to know the individual and what really interests them. Because actually, people don't care about their risk and return, their time horizon. It's quite dull, really. But actually, if you can talk to somebody about what really matters to them in the world, you can create a much, much deeper relationship. So I think, yeah, I think that's really important.
Thanks. And Rachel Travers, just to bring you in on this point of passions, if you're actually engaging people, then you can do all sorts together. I mean, as a charity, how do you see the work you do with donors sort of lighting them up, and getting them, do you find there's a journey there from the interest can grow over time rather than it already being at a very high level and kind of continuing along? How do you see their interest in your space?
It can, but and certainly what our role is to try and grow that interest and keep those passions sort of increasing. But yeah, no, we find we get a lot of high net worth individuals who have, they're used to doing a lot of research and due diligence, and they tell me they've come to Rainforest Trust because they've identified that we are a highly impactful organization. They're wanting organizations to tell them stories about the impact of their donation. We're able to sort of explain how many acres, how many species, how much carbon are being protected as a result of their gift. And yeah, we absolutely see people passionate who are passionate about biodiversity loss or climate change, and they come to us really interested in our work, and they get to choose. So I said at the beginning, we work across 72 countries. Somebody can choose, a bit like Kate said with their investment portfolio, they can choose a portfolio of projects with us from across a number of countries, depending on where they might have been on holiday. They might be interested in a particular bit of the world. They might be interested in a particular species that they want saving. I've got one donor who's particularly interested in tigers. Or if climate change is their motivation, we can identify a large area of primary intact forest that they can have a role in protecting. And those things are, as Kate says, they're the things that really get people excited. And yeah, we can really help them on that journey.
Fantastic. And Becky, I mean, from your perspective, I know you're obviously hugely passionate about the environment. Do you meet other next gens who are also looking to back causes, who are in a similar position and championing and funding some of these causes? Or do you rely on other professionals to kind of, mobilize and group you together? Is it hard to identify other collaborators in
I'd
the
say it's a
space?
mixture. I'd say in the last year, I often now get introduced to people who are in similar positions to me, but maybe aren't doing anything but want to, or want to set up a foundation. Like literally yesterday, I sat down with someone who I got introduced to, and they're a young inheritor who want to do more, want to give more to charity, but don't really know where to start, has still just working with parents, advisors, and they're coming to me, who is not an expert and not making any money from this. And it's an opportunity that wealth advisors should and could have, but because it's not there, they're coming to me. And then I'm sat there and I'm Kate sending her your way to talk to Tribe. And then I'm saying you need to do your life plan and then, figure out how much money you have at the end. And then that you can be a bit more risky with it and do philanthropy with that. And this is all stuff that should be coming from a wealth advisor, but it's not. It ends up coming peer to peer because there just isn't that mechanism for it that's really commonplace unless you know exactly where to go for a philanthropy advisor. And it should all form part of financial advice. So, like, in answer to the question, yes, there's lots of people like me, my age. There's also a lot of very progressive people who are older than me and my parents' generation. I don't think it is just a generational divide in terms of how progressive you are. And like if we take my mum as an example, if me and my sister didn't guide her and push her to do more progressive and more kind of impact driven stuff and philanthropy, she probably wouldn't. Not because she doesn't care, she really cares, but because she doesn't know where to start. She doesn't really like understand much about the investing world. She doesn't enjoy it. So, but if her advisors did that for her, that would be a lot more beneficial. But fortunately, me and my sister are there to do it with her. So I think that a lot of the time it's not that people don't want to, it's just that they don't know how, or they've not been encouraged to do so. I think all it often takes is a conversation, like Kate was saying. It should be one of the first things you start discussing is, okay, you've got this wealth. What do you want it to mean? Rather than how much do you want it to grow? What do you want it to mean for your life kind of thing? Yeah.
Rachel, Derek, I mean, is some of these choices confusing for people? As Becky was saying, the way to give to charity or how to do it, there are obviously options, but do you find that there's the education essentially is missing, or that people can self-direct quite straightforwardly, or what's the friction there?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, that was why Global Returns Project was set up for people that were interested in, giving charitably to climate and nature causes, because it's a very overwhelming world. And even if you've got as far as going, right, I do want to give something philanthropically and I'm worried about climate change, most of us, if we sat down at the computer, we would sort of rapidly lose the will to live, knowing actually, what on earth should I give my money to? Obviously there's rainforests. I know about rainforests, but I've also heard about oceans, and I'm worried about plastic. And what about taking people to court? And that's in a sense what we've done is sort of collect all that together, create sort of the best in class, a portfolio of the best in class charities in many different sectors, to make it easier for donors, and actually therefore make it easier for wealth advisors to be able to sort of have something they can talk to the clients about. And I think that's probably, coming back to some of the points we've already touched on, it is having that confidence as a wealth advisor to talk about philanthropy with your client and not feel that you can't do it unless you really understand all the ins and out of DAFs and foundations and trusts or anything like that, because people are, it's a joint discussion, isn't it? It's development of your conversation around values, etc. And there are always philanthropy experts, ourselves, Rachel Travers, for people that know exactly what they want, people that can easily be connected, and no one expects a wealth advisor to have all the answers, I don't think.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions in the Q&A. I was going to bring one to Joe Crome from Sally Hodgkinson. Thank you, Sally, for the question. Just asking about due diligence on charities. So I know that, Joe, within the DAFs, you're a conduit to donations, but then on the other side, that will be distributed. To what extent, do you help, or what's the professional advisory community like around helping people determine which charities can benefit? How does that kind of process work?
Yeah, so for us with our clients, a client will either know which causes they want to support, and they'll ask us to support that cause through the donor advised fund they have with us. In that case, that every single charity that we support goes through a due diligence process with us. So it's a risk-based approach. So if we're supporting a UK charity, well, the Charity Commission does a pretty good job at regulating them, and we can do some desk research and make sure everything's up to date and okay. If the clients want us to send the money to an overseas charity, we have to follow HMRC's overseas donations guidance to make sure that we're working within all the information that we need, and we're also working with any sanctions or high-risk jurisdictions and making sure that all of the due diligence is done properly. So that's one side of it, making sure that regulatory compliance is met. The other side is, yeah, we do have some clients who come to us who actually they don't know who to support. They're not really sure whether they want to give locally or globally, or whether they might have a charity that have been recommended, but they want us to do an impact assessment of them and see, what would they do with the money that I've got to give them, and how effective would that be? So we have an in-house team of advisors who can run consultation pieces and research for them, and give advice, whether it's advice on a whole family strategy, a kind of theory of change, or whether it's one particular cause area. We generally run that kind of thing within CAF. I think we find in the private wealth community, there isn't the expertise or the knowledge to do that kind of thing, which is why partners like us are really important for them, because they can't do everything. We can't expect private client professionals to know everything about every sector. That's just not realistic. So when we interviewed the advisors for our research, over 50% said they'd never had any training on philanthropy at all, and whether that's right or wrong, it's the reality. So, the minimum, I think the minimum we can order is make sure those advisors know who to signpost to as a minimum, for sure. Yeah.
And I also add a point there, what Kate was saying at the beginning about how important it is to get to know your clients. I think you can tap into us. Like I love meeting other people in my position. And like I think one of the people we bank with have maybe introduced me in the past before. Like I think if you can legally, like in terms of your company structure, don't be afraid to say, oh, I know another person in a similar position who are really interested in the illegal wildlife trade or rewilding, which are two topics I'm very interested in. Do you want to have a coffee with them, or can you have a call with them? So it's not you saying you're giving them a philanthropy advice, but you're then connecting them with someone that they might then become friends with or have connections in other ways too. And I think it doesn't always have to be really rigid and formal. It can be, I would then feel very good towards that advisor because I know that they have like a genuine human connection and are kind of thinking along those lines instead of just what kind of rigid structure can we fit this person into.
Thanks, Becky. I mean, Rachel Travers, how do you kind of connect your community up? I mean, I imagine you've got a large pool of donors, but that probably would, welcome the opportunity to meet each other and get to know each other, socialize even. What kind of things do you do with donors to sort of get them behind the cause and deliver something that they want to be part of, build a community, if you like, around it?
I'm smiling, David, because we've got an event, an exclusive sort of private event for our best donors, or our most important donors, should I say, next week, which we're busy preparing for. So yeah, we give high net worth individuals opportunities to attend exclusive events. It may be in person, they may be webinars online where we have experts, specialists from the field. So there's certainly that. But then, we also provide really tailored and personalised reporting on all of the projects that they might be contributing towards. The donor might have an opportunity to speak to our local partner on the phone if it's an exceptional partnership. We might be able to talk about arranging a visit to the particular area of the rainforest where they could meet our partners at first hand, if that's something of interest. But these are all things we would explore with an individual, and we'd very much make a tailored solution to a tailored offer for them.
Okay, thank you. And Kate, there's a question from Gemma Chambers, which I'm just going to kind of paraphrase slightly, which is just pointing out that perhaps the advisors if you're an investment manager, your role is to run the money. It's not to advise to say give half of it away straight out the door. So is part of the story the mindset of the manager, and it'd be interesting to get your view on where we're at with clients investing for good, wanting to actually make sure their portfolios and their financial investments reflect their kind of social values, and how much they're willing to give up return for the benefit of investing in companies following their ethics, or what your position is around that.
Yeah, I think sorry, I slightly didn't catch the second part of the question, but on the first bit, I think the point around wanting to protect assets, I think there is still a slight issue with that, in that a lot of sort of private wealth institutions are nervous about money going out the door because they're not charging fees on it, essentially there. Obviously, over the last 10-15 years, we've seen a lot of change in terms of banks starting up DAFs and their own philanthropy advisory services, which I think is a great way to engage with that space. But there is still a problem in that area. I mean, at Tribe, we're very lucky, given our kind of principles and our values as a business. We really don't mind about money going out the door. It really is important that it goes to the right place. But that's a mindset, I think, for the advisor to get comfortable with. Your second point of the question,
second
David,
part is in the sense of the impact investment, like a regular investor looking at how they set themselves up. Are they willing to take a lower return to benefit from a portfolio that's more aligned with goals and impact rather than, I mean, over the last few years, we've obviously seen unconstrained portfolios perhaps outperform those that were more biased in a certain way. But what's your read on that and how clients are responding to the markets as they are?
I mean, we would still say that these portfolios can perform in line or outperform in the long term. I mean, you're absolutely right that in the short term, last couple of years, it's been tricky. But any portfolio manager with a style will have stylistic outperformance and underperformance. We don't really see any change. If anything, the kind of multi-generational money is still moving very much in this direction. I think in your late 20s and you have money that you're going to be stewarding for the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years, you know, you only have to look at the world around us and realize that, you know, it is unsustainable. So I think this is still the right financial decision as well as an impactful decision. And I think to add to that, there is a growing appreciation of all generations that your money should reflect your giving. So, you know, you can double your impact essentially. So certainly with family foundations now, we're seeing a lot of moves to ensure that the investments reflect the philanthropic side of things.
Okay, interesting. And Joe, just to bring you back in, Kate mentioned DAFs and how DAFs can help a wealth manager prevent money going out the door, if you like, direct, you know, perhaps you could just unpack the DAF and how it works, particularly from a wealth management's perspective, if they've got a client who wants to set up a charitable pot.
Yeah, David, and if you don't mind, I just go back on one of Kate's points, which I think was really fair in that I think particularly some time ago, investment managers in particular were quite conflicted about sending money out of the portfolio if it meant that reduces their overall balance sheet. I think more and more they've recognized now that you know, it's to quote George King at Maseko, who some of you will know, who's a bit of a sage guru in this space. You know, he says that investment managers, your best commodity is time with clients. You know, you want those assets for generation after generation, and so if moving on some of those assets to help a client achieve their impact is what needs to be done, that's also going to create a stickier, longer term relationship with that client and their children and so on and so on. So doing the right thing is usually the best thing for your long term business and for the client. So I think I always like to quote George. So there we go. I've done that today. But with donor advised funds, so the donor advised funds obviously are a charitable pot that sits under the umbrella of a charity like us, for example, like CAF. And often people are now using donor advised funds in place of using a foundation. So they're still using the donor advised fund as a long-term vehicle for giving, maybe even in perpetuity. And so, of course, usually the idea there is that you're investing the majority of the capital for long-term growth. And so, you know, you invest the capital, and then when you're looking to make grants to charities, you just draw down some of those assets. The way that we work and many DAFs work is that we will work with an investment manager to look after the assets on our behalf and for the client. So actually what you can see is that the investment manager doesn't lose the assets under management because the client gifts them to us, and then we ask that investment manager to look after them for us to help the DAF grow. And that's a good outcome for us because we're not investment managers. So we would rather an expert does their best job to grow the assets for us. The investment manager, of course, is usually happy to do that. And the client is happy for us because they have someone that they trust looking after the money. So it switches from private assets to charitable assets, but the investment manager still gets to help steward those assets for good for the future. And so that's quite a popular model that is very popular in the States and is now growing here in the UK as well.
So if there are wealth managers on this call that want to plug in and use that that kit, if you like, in their business, they can reach out to Joe to find out more. But you're also active also with, I guess, if there's non-doms, and there might be quite complex tax situations that you can help with if they've got a philanthropic mission underneath that. So I'm sure that aspect also comes in.
Yeah, I mean, lots of DAFs now offer, you know, things like offshore giving for clients who are obviously things are a bit different now because the remittance space was a thing, is no longer a thing post April 6th. So, but things like offshore giving and also giving assets that are based in other countries into other brokerage accounts is something that the planning that you can do charitably and particularly with DAFs is really advanced. But I think even even for lots of advisors, they're catching up on what's possible. Obviously, the motive is if you can give as tax efficiently as possible, more money can go to the charities that you want to support, and that's the motivation for us to offer that kind of service.
Fantastic. And Rachel, Derek, just going to bring you in. There's a question from Sally Hodgkinson, just to say, how are organisations chosen for your portfolio? You mentioned scientific advisors, but is there a process by which organisations are considered? So just perhaps give us a little bit more of a sense for Sally's benefit on that.
Absolutely. So we've developed a sort of proprietary methodology, if you like. And the first step is that together with our board of scientists, we've basically got a list of all the interventions that charities are best placed to do to fight the climate crisis and nature loss. And then, so that helps us see sort of the whole world so that we can try and make sure we're addressing as much of the, all of the problem from lots of different angles, and certainly not putting all our eggs in one basket. And then when it comes to sort of selecting the highest performing charity in each particular sector, we have a methodology where charities are initially screened according to their governance structures, size, age, revenue. At this stage, we're looking at what you might call the sort of blue chip equivalent in the philanthropic world. And then the charities that pass through those sizing gates are assessed according to their impacts, their scalability, the networks they've formed, and the co-benefits they deliver. So whilst the impacts that we look at are obviously climate and nature related impacts, we also consider that wider set of SDGs, when we're looking at co-benefits. And then it's the highest scoring charity that gets admitted to our portfolio. And that scoring is redone every 6 months so that the portfolio is sort of monitored constantly. And, if necessary, a charity may be replaced if it's changed mission or it's no longer the highest performing charity. Although I hasten to add, our aim and our hope and our experience so far is that we form longer term relationships with the charities.
Thank you for that. I hope that got to ask the question, but it sounds like a stringent due diligence process as we'd rightly expect. Rachel, Travis, just to bring you in, I mean, just zooming out, looking at the global political environment, more and more complex these days, but protecting our environment is an issue that many people are passionate about, but the governmental mood music now is changing. Do you think there's a gap for private donors who are passionate about conservation, about saving the environment, to step forward at this moment, to collectivize, mobilize, try and fill that gap that governments perhaps are receding out of? What's your take on how private individuals can really take this moment to actually do something at a critical juncture for us?
It is a critical juncture, and one of the global targets we're all running to try and achieve is to protect 30% of land and sea by 2030, and that's kind of a core objective of Rainforest Trust's work to contribute to that. I think it is a critical juncture. We know time is running out. We know the impact and the investment that people make now is so much more important than saving for future generations and passing the wealth on in 50, 100 years' time. We know from an environmental perspective it is really important to invest and donate that money as quickly as possible. So yeah, it is an important time. And yeah, there's organisations like us who can help people with their donations, and Rachel said we're part of the portfolio and considered one of the best in class climate charities. But yeah, I just did before I came on, I just did a quick Google on the proportion of people in the UK that are really concerned about climate change. Despite political changes across the world, and 80% of people in the UK are really concerned about climate change and the worsening of our climate, and 40% are taking action and are very concerned about biodiversity loss, which is less, but still those two things combined when you're taking a nature-based solution like protecting rainforests. We're trying to sort of address both of those concerns. So I think those concerns are genuinely there in the population. Becky's described being a next-gen investor, and certainly sort of epitomizes, I think, a lot of the people that are coming and finding us because they're wanting to make an impact on saving the world. I mean, that is what we're talking about right now.
I mean, Becky, do you think there's enough urgency in the kind of the donor base who are passionate about these environmental causes? I mean, I suppose everyone is doing what they can, but is that sense of urgency
I
sort of
disagree
palpable?
with that. I don't think everyone is doing what they can. I think
Right.
there's a lot of people who are ignoring what's going on. You read the rich list and you see the giving list, and there's many, many people on that rich list who are doing nothing or giving away a few thousand each year and are kind of more focused on growing and buying things that are unnecessary. So I
Mm,
think people should be doing a lot more. And I do think the wealth advisors have a role to play in encouraging that to happen, because who else is going to tell them? Like, I'm more so now, but like growing up, and I know my dad and my mum weren't in circles of other people in similar positions to what they're in now. So they've got no one else to tell them. And so it either has to be their advisors or no one is. And people need to kind of be encouraged. And a wealth advisor is there to advise on wealth. And I think doing something to help protect the planet with the privileged position that we're all in is
mm.
is so urgent, and that urgency is not there. I think I'm a biased sample because the people I spend time with do feel this sense of urgency, and we talk about it a lot. But I would say on the whole, it's not like I've been to several Next Gen events where none of them are thinking anything about philanthropy, let alone impact investing, and they're kind of just thinking about how to grow their money. And that's the industry is, that's what it's catered towards. That's all people talk about is return, 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 and they don't talk about anything else. So I think that the urgency needs to come from all angles and be felt by everyone in order for anything to meaningfully change.
Thanks. And
Can I just jump in there, David? Sorry. Yeah, I just sort of echoing what Becky says, really. I mean, I think, I think it's only about 4% of philanthropic giving goes towards the climate. There's still a lot more that needs to be done there. And I think hopefully my colleagues more than I on this panel have shown that there are benefits to talking about philanthropy. So I kind of feel a bit that, if you're on this call and you're an advisor, that's it. That's your reason to do it. Who cares what your bosses say? It will make you a better advisor. So get engaged, get educated, and just talk to clients about it, because I can guarantee you'll be a better advisor in the end, and it will be pushing money to the places that need it.
And just to follow on from that point, I know a lot of this, sometimes you get the people who aren't at the very top of the business who want to make these changes, but the business is stopping them. If there's ever a useful opportunity for you to bring people like me in, or my sister or others, who can sit in front of those people and argue our case as a wealth holder, I think that sadly our voice holds more strength than someone within the company saying we need to do this. So like, I am so willing to do that, and I know many people who would be willing to do that, sit in those rooms with those people and tell them, you won't have us as clients unless you change. And I think that, like, if you build those relationships that Kate's been talking about, you'll have that kind of dynamic with people you're managing, and you can bring them in and you can forward an email of them saying, look, you need to do X, Y, Z onto your boss. And that it's those little things that are going to help change from within. So tap into us as well where you can and where it's useful.
Rachel, Derek.
Yeah, just wanted to sort of add on to that I know advisors, very much, or many of the advisors I've spoken to would absolutely sort of recoil from the idea of telling their clients to sort of do anything philanthropically. But there's a really interesting statistic that I think is, just raises the issue of all you have to do is mention it, not sort of recommend even. So if people who are writing their wills are given the message that other people who write wills leave money to charity, they leave 40% more. 40% more goes to charity with people that are just given that simple message. So it's just like, like other people have said earlier on the call, it is literally about just sort of bringing it to, as an option, bring it to the table as an option.
I mean, Kate, do you think, I mean, education is often mentioned, education of advisors. And obviously advisors have to jump through various hurdles in their training, the CISI, they have to sit exams. I mean, I sat those exams many moons ago. They didn't have philanthropy as part of that syllabus. You don't want to change through regulation. You want to change through passion and people getting the message. But could that be part of the picture, that it has to be incorporated? Why shouldn't it be incorporated into a wealth manager's training syllabus, if they're going to be qualified and regulated in the sector?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, when I was a younger wealth manager, I did a course at Bayes Business School in philanthropy because, and I was very lucky my employer paid for it, but that was expensive and it's not something everyone can find the time to do. So I definitely would call on, people to set up, to put the training out there. I know there
Mm.
are organizations doing it more and more. One other thing, just for advisors, which I think is important to bring up, is that I also think as advisors, we need to get comfortable with our relationships with the charities as well. Because one of the things I think that advisors often feel uncomfortable with is they might meet with a Rachel or somebody else, and then there's a sort of responsibility to ensure that capital moves in that direction. I think we have to think about our philanthropic partners in the same way as we think about all of our networks.
Mm.
It's important to build that network. Money won't always come on day one, but it's about enriching the options that you can present to a client so that you do present, a whole holistic host of options. And I think it's for the advisor, we need to get a bit less uncomfortable with that relationship with the charities, actually, because I've taken clients to charity balls before, and they've ended up giving six-figure sums to charities, which is a really lovely moment. But then I have this absolute existential crisis that, oh my God, think about all the other charities that didn't get that money. And so there's quite a lot just emotionally as an advisor to get through. So don't be afraid to confront that, would be another bit of my advice.
It's a great point. Joe, do you have something to add?
Yeah, David, just on the point you made about qualifications, actually, I think the good
Mm.
news is that we've been working over the last year or two with government and opposition and a number of umbrella bodies about this very subject, and there is interest between the FCA and the Treasury and DCMS on actually either mandating some kind of charitable planning piece within the initial qualification or with an ongoing CPD for financial advisors. So that would be interesting and I think important, particularly for younger planners as they go up through the ranks. They can learn how to help clients with their philanthropy. The other thing that we've explored, and I know Philanthropy Impact have explored, is that in the States you can become a chartered advisor in philanthropy, which is a designation that I took a couple of years ago on the US side. And it's seen as a badge of trust so that a client can speak to an advisor. They have this CAP designation. They know that they are relatively fluent and understanding of philanthropic issues. We don't have anything like that in the UK, and I think that would be something that we would love to champion and see as a bit of a badge of a sign that this advisor actually knows what they're talking about when it comes to my impact and my family's legacy and that kind of thing. So something for us all to consider for sure.
Makes a lot of sense. Rachel, Derek.
Yeah, just wanted to say that actually we've developed some training for advisors on offering philanthropy, obviously specifically about climate philanthropy, but our training is endorsed by CI, SI and LIBF for ongoing CPD, and that is free to advisors. So do get in contact
Great.
with me if anyone's interested.
Well, everyone has to do CPD in the sector, so I'm sure they would welcome some additional training on that. We'll circulate the link afterwards, Rachel, to all those tuned in. But Becky.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a bit of an anecdote of an example of where I think this falls down. So I was speaking to a tax advisor once, and I was trying to articulate that tax efficiency is not the number one goal for me. It's ease. Not saying I don't need tax, just saying that efficiency, I would rather take slightly more tax than have a very complex structure. And I was then jokingly told, oh, I'll be out of a job, like if everyone thinks like this. And that, I think that kind of mindset really needs to change, because we're always going to need to pay taxes. We're always going to need to have someone who can do that for us and understand the complexities of it. I think there needs to be a bit more flexibility in figuring out what the client wants and not just presuming these things, which is grow money, like be tax efficient, like the kind of standard way of doing things, and not be so horrified. Because obviously I'm going to hear that and then immediately think, well, this person is not aligned to my views. I don't want to work with someone who can't get their head around the idea of having simplicity over tax efficiency. And I just thought that that's kind of one of a good example of the types of things that need to change within the sector. And it shouldn't be that difficult. It's not saying that you don't need tax. You're still going to have fees that you need to pay to have that service. And then the additional thing is just, I'm obviously on the advisory group for the Environmental Funders Network. It's like the most invaluable network of individuals where you're surrounded by other people who are in similar positions to you, and there is so many different avenues you can go down. If you're really specifically focused on biodiversity in Angola, they'll probably know someone who's working there, or if it's climate tech. And so I'd say that's a very good starting point. If you don't want to send them to a charity, you can send them to a network of funders who can then send them to charities. So it kind of takes that burden away that Kate was saying of which is the right charity. There's many different ways. Environmental funders are one of the best ones I know, and they're obviously UK based, so it's very easy for people on this call. But yeah, I'd say that's a good starting point for advisors as well, if they don't have those contacts already.
Well, shout out to Jane from Environmental Funders Network, who's put a thing in the comments. So if you don't know them, look them up. Jane Kabutki, thank you for putting your comment in there. But Kate, just coming back to you, Hannah puts a comment in the Q&A just saying from our earlier point talking about the new type of client, the great wealth transfer, next gens and more female clients coming through. What's the rolling forward a few years? What's that going to mean in the sector? You know, you can't stereotype across the piece to say that these clients invest as one, but do you think there'll be a certain, you know, firms will have to make more provision to this? They'll deliver a service in a certain way, in a different way, or what do you think it might have as an impact with wealth going into different hands with different priorities and objectives? Hopefully it can give us a bit more optimism for the future.
Yeah, I think definitely this whole idea of everything being aligned, so thinking holistically across a person's wealth, I think we're going to see more and more of that. So, you know, initially when you meet a client, you have a much deeper discussion around, you know, what the world looks like to them, really. And that will then include their investments, their cash, their illiquid investments, their giving, and then trying to create solutions that address all of those things in a much more holistic way. I think that's where the industry should be moving to and is moving to. I notice in Hannah's question, it was a little bit more about giving trends and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I certainly am seeing more giving in the climate space amongst younger clients, particularly. I think, you know, if you're going to be living on this earth a lot longer, I think you care a bit more, frankly, because there won't be anything left. So I definitely see that, which is great news for places like the Global Returns Project, and I think it's really important. I think our clients are becoming much more data-led, much more knowledgeable actually on what good outcomes look like from an impact perspective in both philanthropy and investments. Our clients are more educated, and that's great news, because it means that we can really work with them to deliver the right thing. So yeah, I think it's the industry probably needs to keep up with the clients now, I would say, actually. I think the clients are way ahead of us and we need to catch up with them again.
And Rachel Travers, do you notice the demography of your donor base? You know, are there any marked sort of characteristics? Do you have the younger supporters coming through because environmental and climate linked charities are more at heart to them?
We do. We've got. I mean, we get donations from a whole range of people. I would say. I guess our typical donor actually it still remains the slightly older.
You've got to have made the money before you give it away, I guess, is part of the picture, isn't it?
Yeah, wealthier sections of society, but they are certainly, as I said, I think before, they are people that are doing their research, and as I think you just said, Kate, they're coming to us very well informed, and they're coming to us wanting very clear outcomes and very clear impact of their gift, and that's why, you know, often people are choosing us, because as I said at the start, we've got very clear impact measures and can deliver some excellent benefit to the world.
And is there a sense of the difference between giving to a very large charity and small? Like if you can deliver a very personalized kind of experience, people will know the big brands in certain spaces. Is there a difference in how people experience the donor process?
I mean, I can only speak from the experience we are offering, which I will say is very personalised. We're a small team here in the UK, and we will get to know our donors. So we do take time to understand, as I said earlier, what their motivations are and what their interests across the world might be. But yeah, I'm sure lots of charities are offering a similar service in that way.
Well, we're coming towards the end of this discussion. There is still time to pop a question in the Q&A that we can bring to our audience. But I might just come for a quick sort of closing thought, perhaps to a few of the panelists. Perhaps Rachel, Derek, if you have any closing thoughts as we wrap up this discussion, which I found tremendous fun and really illuminating.
Yeah, I mean, I'd go back to what I said earlier, which is absolutely, if you're a wealth advisor, please don't be afraid to bring up philanthropy. There are plenty of ways to bring it up in a sort of non-judgmental, just raise the topic. There are so many people out there that you can introduce your clients to, and it will only improve your relationship with clients.
Joe, when you get back from DC, what are you going to be working on for the rest of the year to help boost the philanthropic sector?
Yeah, it's a lot of going out to advisors and presenting to them, and just as Rachel does in terms of training and support and just advising on the different sorts of things that we do and getting the message out there, because it is a maturing industry. I do think the penny is dropping with the wealth industry, and I would just say my message would be talk about philanthropy helps attract new clients. It helps retain clients, as our sage George King says. And I think this is not to be critical of private client advisors. This is, just as a tax advisor would need to refer a client to an investment manager, they may need to refer a client to a philanthropy advisor or a charity or elsewhere. So I think if you're not sure where to start, speak to one of us today and help us help you signpost your clients to the right causes. And I think that's the place to start.
Fantastic. Well, look, that's a great message to end on. Thank you so much for joining us this webinar. Thank you so much to my panel for an engaging conversation, and we look forward to sharing this